It is the 1930s and Korea has been invaded by the Japanese army. At a small village, Japanese soldiers patrol the streets while armed with their rifles and bayonets. Our protagonist, Suki, is a Korean villager. She stands under a rainy sky before she bids farewell to her friends. Suki will be leaving them to work for a Japanese lord at his mansion. En route to her workplace, Suki is amazed by the humongous size of the mansion. Life might not be so bad for her after all. At the entrance, she is received by the overseer of the manor, Sasaki. Damn, this lady looks hella scary. Suki better run. As expected, the stony-faced Sasaki informs Suki about the various rules which the servants must obey. If not, she will be fired. Climbing upstairs, Suki notices paintings of her new boss, Lady Hideko, whom she will serve. Sasaki shows Suki to her chambers, which is directly outside Hideko's room. It is also a tiny space that is no bigger than a coffin. In the middle of the night, Suki is woken by loud screams. She races to Hideko's side and learns that she was having a bad dream. Drenched in sweat, Hideko points at a tree outside her window, telling Suki that years ago, her aunt had hung herself on it. Suki feels disturbed by the tale. When she stares outside the window, thunder booms loudly and causes Suki to dash away in terror. In the next scene, Suki narrates about her true identity. Instead of being a servant, Suki is actually a pickpocket who lives and works together with her friends from earlier. One day, a con man, Count Fujiwara, approached Suki and her gang to collude with him. Aware that Hideko is an orphan who stays with her uncle, Kozuki, Fujiwara plans to seduce Hideko and wed her in order to inherit her wealth of 1.5 million in cash, and 300,000 in bonds. To do so, he needs Suki to get close to Hideko and help her fall in love with Fujiwara. After marrying Hideko, he plots to accuse his wife of being mentally ill for her to be confined in an asylum. That way, he would be able to inherit his wife's money. For helping him, Fujiwara agrees to split his profit with the gang. Enticed, the group accepts his offer. During the next morning at the manor, Suki sees Hideko clearly for the first time. Since she couldn't see Hideko's face well in the dark earlier, Suki now stares in a daze, mesmerized by Hideko's doll-like beauty. Noon arrives. Following her daily routine, Hideko heads to the library where she will read poetry to her uncle, Kozuki. Alone in Hideko's room, Suki happily wears Hideko's clothes, proving herself to be materialistic. Afterward, she opens up some boxes and discovers a strange object attached with metallic bells. Then, she unboxes a thick, white rope. Having heard about the suicide of Hideko's aunt, the white rope inevitably seems suspicious to her. Later, Suki visits the library. She sees her uncle, Kozuki, for the first time. Suki almost enters the room but simultaneously, Hideko pulls a lever and a gate slides out from nowhere, barring Suki from entering. The following day, Hideko takes a bath with Suki's assistance. Since Fujiwara will visit the mansion as a guest, Suki insists that Hideko dolls up prettily to impress him. Listening, Hideko suckles on a lollipop but suddenly gets a toothache. Hoping to soothe Hideko, Suki sticks her finger into Hideko's mouth to rub her sore tooth. This causes the pair to feel their temperature rising. Steamy time. Fujiwara arrives. He greets Hideko and eats dinner with her and Kozuki. The next morning, Fujiwara calls Suki to his room for assistance. Earning privacy, he reminds Suki to concentrate on her job. Moreover, he needs Suki to help him and Hideko to get more alone time. Suki cannot help agreeing. Money is her purpose. Yet, Suki also knows that her feelings for Hideko are real. She is mesmerized when she follows behind Hideko, who looks stunning in pure white. While Suki undresses Hideko, she feels warmer while unbuttoning her dress. Hideko unexpectedly decides for Suki to wear her clothes. Seeing Suki dressed finely, Hideko comments that Suki looks like a lady herself. The pair grow more intimate as they unbutton each other's attire slowly. The next day, Hideko is busy gawking at Fujiwara. She seems to be falling for Fujiwara too. Simultaneously, Suki notices Hideko and feels pity for her, since she is clueless about being conned. During an art class, Fujiwara teaches Hideko to paint her fruits properly and be the next Michelangelo. He leans closer, touching her inappropriately. Feeling uncomfortable, Hideko rejects his advances. The lesson is cut short. Later that evening, Suki and Hideko stroll in the garden. To make conversation, Suki shares with Hideko about her mother's death. Similar to Hideko's aunt, Suki's mother died after she was hung for committing crimes. This leads Hideko to open up about her own mother who died during childbirth. Since Hideko indirectly killed her mother, she always wished that she was never born. To Hideko's surprise, Suki abruptly grabs her cheeks and asserts that no baby is guilty of being born. Hideko is touched by Suki's kindness. Over the next few days, Fujiwara and Hideko grow closer and their relationship develops. As Hideko's personal maid, Suki watches everything unfold. She becomes more jealous with each passing day. At night, Suki would stay awake, obsessing over Hideko. Although Suki must help Fujiwara and Hideko get married, she is clearly overwhelmed by her affection towards Hideko. One night, Suki purposely ignores Hideko even when Hideko rings a bell to summon her. Getting ignored, Hideko fervently summons Suki and rings the bell non-stop until it breaks. Finally, Suki attends to Hideko. Hideko scolds Suki for her bad attitude. She demands Suki to keep her company since she suspects that might have another bad dream. Lying in bed, Hideko confides to Suki about Fujiwara's marriage proposal. Curious about her answer, Suki asks Hideko about her thoughts. Hideko says that honestly, Fujiwara seems suspicious. Plus, she did not like Fujiwara's idea of escaping to Japan, in order to run away from Hideko's uncle, Kozuki. Suki listens in silence. Continuing, Hideko asks Suki about what married couples do during their consummation night. Suki demonstrates thoroughly, down to the minute details. The next day, Fujiwara and Hideko are having a painting lesson when Fujiwara touches her inappropriately again. A jealous Suki decides to stop him by ruining the lesson with her tantrum. Being in love with Hideko, she no longer aims to con her and could hardly stand the sight of Fujiwara snaking his fingers around her precious lady. Annoyed by Suki's behavior, Fujiwara meets with Suki afterward to confront her about sticking to their plan. He reminds her about the wealth waiting right at their doorsteps. Focused on the money at stake, Suki gets swayed by his pep talk. While giving Hideko a massage, Suki persuades Hideko to marry Fujiwara for her own good. She lists down all the good traits which Fujiwara possesses. Unexpectedly, Hideko grows upset and slaps Suki before chasing her out of the room. The next morning, Fujiwara gladly leaves the mansion after receiving approval from Hideko in regards to his marriage proposal. Yet, Hideko only agreed on one condition. Suki must accompany them to Japan. Simultaneously, Hideko's uncle, Kozuki, leaves the manor as well. He will be going on a work trip which will last a week. Before he drives away, Kozuki sternly warns Hideko not to forget the basement. This unnerves Hideko. Without her uncle present, Hideko finally has a chance to flee from the manor with Suki and her luggages. They meet Fujiwara at the remote lake and decide to flee from Korea via a ship. Having reached the land of the rising sun, the trio visit a temple shrine located on a secluded mountain. Fujiwara and Hideko officially get married. When Fujiwara and Hideko prepare to spend the night in their room, Suki is kept awake in the room beside theirs. She cannot bear the thought of the newlyweds consummating their marriage. Just then, she hears the source of her moodiness. When day breaks, Suki rushes anxiously to the bedroom of the Hideko and Fujiwara. Looking at the bedsheets, Suki turns pale as she sees a stain of blood. Her worst fear becomes a reality. The next few days, Fujiwara has disappeared from the temple. Without her husband, Hideko grows bored. She is unaware that Fujiwara is busy preparing the marriage certificates which will grant him Hideko's money. Eventually, he returns and gives Suki a bag containing the amount she is owed. An eager Suki tells the doctors accompanying Fujiwara that Hideko is in a fragile state of mind. She concludes that Hideko belongs in an asylum and sticks to the plan. Upon hearing her testimony, the doctors nod. Fujiwara and Suki bring Hideko to an asylum. There, Hideko looks appalled and frightened. Feeling sorry, Suki hugs Hideko goodbye. To her surprise, nurses grab Suki and drag her inside to be admitted. Suki struggles to break free and tells the doctors that they got the wrong person. However, the doctors were informed that Suki is Lady Hideko yet believes herself to be a handmaiden. Everything was a scheme by Hideko and Fujiwara. They had already met a long time ago before Suki and Hideko had even met. Having met Hideko, Fujiwara knew that Hideko was impossible to seduce since she preferred women over men. Fujiwara was also aware that Kozuki eyed Hideko's wealth and planned to marry her to get his hands on them too. Thus, Fujiwara proposed to help Hideko escape her uncle in exchange for a portion of her wealth. To do so, they needed to trick Suki into being locked up after using Hideko's identity. This way, they could throw Kozuki in a misdirection so that he would be unable to find them. When Hideko was a young girl, She was abused by her uncle. Furthermore, the head servant, Sasaki, was equally cruel to the poor child. Left orphaned, Hideko suffered bad treatment during her stay at her uncle's home. Fortunately, her aunt was the only one who was kind towards her. Yet, being a woman in those days, Hideko's aunt was inevitably powerless against her husband. Forced to satisfy Kozuki's perverted desires, Hideko and her aunt often stayed in the library to read obscene poetry. Kozuki did whatever he pleased with them and treated them degradingly. One day, Kozuki teaches Hideko that lunacy runs in her family. Since her aunt is mad, Hideko must be mad too. He explains to Hideko about mental hospitals and the barbaric treatments these institutions use on their patients. Listening throughout, Hideko's already crazy aunt grows more unhinged. She tries to run away but fails. Ultimately, the distressed wife opted to take her own life. Following the death of her predecessor, Hideko begins to fill in the duties of her aunt. At the library, Hideko would be tasked to read inappropriate stories to an audience, including her uncle and his secret club of horny men. One day, Fujiwara joins the audience. He is instantly enchanted by Hideko's beauty. That is also when Fujiwara discussed with Hideko about his plan to aid her in escaping Kozuki. Feeling scared, Hideko informed Fujiwara that Kozuki will find them using any means. She adds that Kozuki has a basement where he tortures his victims. In truth, her aunt did not kill herself. She died after being tortured by Kozuki in his basement. Fujiwara understands. He hands a vial of poison to Hideko, and tells her that she should drink it if she ever gets caught by her uncle. This way, she could end her life and Kozuki would not be able to torture her. Moreover, to throw Kozuki off the track, Fujiwara will provide Hideko with a scapegoat. He will organize for a maiden to take Hideko's identity and get locked inside an asylum in her stead. This way, Hideko could disappear without a trace. Hideko agrees to his plan. Their scapegoat is none other than Suki. Despite having a good plan, nobody expected that Hideko would fall in love with Suki. During the night of their conflict, Hideko attempted suicide after chasing Suki outside. She could not bear to witness her betrayal when Suki persisted in urging Hideko to marry Fujiwara. As Hideko drops from the tree, Suki catches her feet in the nick of time. Suki feels apologetic and reveals her scheme. She begs Hideko's for forgiveness. Since Suki was honest, Hideko also exposes her plan with Fujiwara involving having Suki locked in an asylum. Furious that Fujiwara has fooled her, Suki decides to team with Hideko into tricking him instead. She informs her gang of misfits about the change of plans. Hideko and Suki will escape from both Fujiwara and Kozuki. In exchange, her gang will receive some of Hideko's wealth. Hideko also gives Suki a bracelet to send to her gang in advance. Afterwards, Hideko brings Suki to the library and shows her the books that she was forced to read since her childhood. Suki flies into a rage and immediately destroys all the books. Recounting all the pain and sadness she was subjected to, Hideko shed tears. Then, she smiles when she watches Suki doing this for her. The lovers happily flee from the mansion during dawn. Then, they meet Fujiwara and pretend nothing happened while Hideko and Fujiwara completed their wedding. Back in the present, it is Fujiwara who is unaware that he is being tricked. While Suki suffers in the asylum, Hideko and Fujiwara are enjoying a delicious plate of steak. Fujiwara shows Hideko photos of a house in Russia. He wonders if she would want to get married to him for real, and stay there with him. Since Hideko has stolen Suki's identity, she is officially free from her uncle. Fujiwara also shares that once the asylum doctors inform him about Suki's death, he would receive the riches of his so-called wife. A worried Hideko listens to him. Just then, a fire breaks out at the asylum. Disguised as firemen, Suki's gang arrives at the scene. They are on a mission to rescue their friend. In the evening, Hideko stays with Fujiwara at a hotel. When he tries to get fresh with her, Hideko drugs him with the same vial of liquid he gave to her. This knocks him out cold. Leaving with the money, Hideko goes to find Suki. They embrace happily. Morning dawns, and a half-naked Fujiwara finds Hideko missing after regaining his consciousness. He is greeted by two thugs who bring him back to Kozuki's mansion. Shackled to a chair in the basement, Fujiwara is shocked to see Kozuki. Kozuki begins torturing Fujiwara by cutting off his fingers one by one. He screams in agony before Kozuki casually sweeps his fingers off the table. Seemingly pitiful, Fujiwara pleads with Kozuki to let him smoke one last cigarette before his death. Kozuki agrees. While Fujiwara smokes, Kozuki asks Fujiwara how sleeping with Hideko felt like, during the night of their wedding. Fujiwara comments that such a matter should be private. In truth, he was hoping to protect his pride. Fujiwara did not sleep with Hideko at all. It was Hideko who made herself orgasm and also slashed her palm to produce the bloodstain which Suki had seen. Unbeknownst to Kozuki, Fujiwara's cigarette is laced with poison. Fujiwara tells Kozuki that his cigarette contains mercury and it is poisonous in its gaseous form. After smoke has filled the room, Kozuki and Fujiwara both breathe their last, dying from the poisoned air. Elsewhere, Hideko and Suki are on a ship sailing toward Shanghai. To avoid getting caught by Kozuki's henchmen, Hideko cleverly swaps her identity by disguising as a man. Arriving in Shanghai, the duo book a hotel room. To celebrate their freedom, they proceed to make love with each other, living happily ever after. The end. What are your thoughts on this video? Comment below and don't forget to subscribe.